In the barren mountain canyon, the SEAL team was trapped with nowhere to run. Enemy forces surrounded them from all sides, machine guns firing relentlessly without pause. A soldier screamed desperately, "No way out! We're completely trapped!" Amid the shouts of desperation, someone pointed frantically toward the empty ridge on the right. "Ridge is empty! No cover there at all!" But immediately after that, sharp rifle fire echoed precisely from that same ridge they thought was abandoned. The entire team fell silent. Someone was fighting for them. Camila Rojas had learned to make herself invisible among the elite SEAL operators she accompanied on missions. At 30 years old, with long brown hair usually braided back and a lean build that made her seem fragile compared to the heavily muscled special operations soldiers, she served as a communications technician whose job was to maintain radio equipment and ensure reliable contact with headquarters. To the SEALs she supported, communications technicians were necessary but unremarkable support personnel. They ensured that radios worked and satellite links remained operational, but they weren't considered part of the actual fighting force. They were background staff who kept the technology running while the real warriors handled combat operations. "Why do we need a tech on this mission?" Petty Officer Rodriguez would ask during mission briefings, gesturing dismissively toward Camila as she quietly organized communication equipment. "This is supposed to be a fast-moving reconnaissance patrol, not a technical support operation." Sergeant Williams would nod in agreement. "Right. If shooting starts, she'll just be another liability we have to protect instead of focusing on the mission." These comments never seemed to affect Camila's demeanor. She would continue her work with quiet efficiency, testing radio frequencies, ensuring backup communication systems were operational, and making sure that every piece of electronic equipment was functioning perfectly before missions began. But Camila's approach to her technical duties was different from other communications personnel. She would often volunteer for additional responsibilities that weren't in her job description, helping with equipment maintenance, assisting with mission planning, and providing technical insights that seemed to go beyond normal communication support. Her attention to detail was extraordinary. She could identify potential radio interference patterns before they became problems, and she had an unusual familiarity with tactical communications procedures that puzzled some of the more observant SEAL team members. "Strange for a comtech to know so much about field operations," Chief Petty Officer Martinez commented to his colleague while watching Camila efficiently set up a communication post, according to protocols that most civilian technicians wouldn't understand. "She seems to understand tactical positioning better than someone whose job is just maintaining radios." "Maybe she's done some research," his colleague replied. "Better than having someone who doesn't understand what they're supporting." Hidden in Camila's backpack, carefully concealed among routine technical manuals and communication equipment, was a small metal box with an inscription that was barely visible due to wear and age. "Kraken Unit, Falcon Ridge." During mission planning sessions, Camila would often study topographical maps with an intensity that seemed unusual for someone whose role was limited to communication support. She would examine terrain features, elevation changes, and line-of-sight considerations with the kind of systematic analysis that suggested extensive training and tactical assessment. "Why does she spend so much time looking at maps?" one SEAL asked another while noting Camila's careful study of the mission area's geography. "Communication planning doesn't require that level of terrain analysis." Late at night, when the team was resting during extended operations, Camila would sometimes position herself where she could observe the surrounding landscape. She would scan ridgelines and elevated positions with binoculars, ostensibly checking for communication tower locations, but with a thoroughness that suggested other considerations. During one such observation session, Private Chen approached her with a question that had been bothering him. "Ma'am, I've noticed you always seem to be looking at that empty ridge over there. There's nothing on it. No communication towers, no structures, nothing. What are you checking for?" Camila lowered her binoculars and looked at him with eyes that seemed much more experienced than her technical role would suggest. Sometimes what appears to be empty is actually your only hope. Chen didn't understand what she meant, but something in her tone suggested depths he couldn't fathom. Later, Chen would say, I asked her why she kept looking at that barren ridge, and she said, sometimes what looks empty is actually your only hope. I thought it was just talk, but there was something in her eyes that suggested she knew things the rest of us didn't. The patrol mission was supposed to be a routine reconnaissance sweep through a valley that intelligence reports indicated was clear of enemy activity. The SEAL team was tasked with gathering information about potential terrorist movement patterns and establishing temporary observation posts for future operations. Camila accompanied the team to maintain communication equipment and ensure that data collected during the mission could be transmitted back to headquarters for analysis. Her role was strictly technical support, with explicit instructions to stay out of tactical decision-making and focus solely on her communication responsibilities. Everything went wrong when they encountered a carefully planned ambush in the narrow canyon that served as their primary route through the mission area. Enemy forces had positioned themselves on multiple elevated positions, creating overlapping fields of fire that trapped the SEAL team in a kill zone with limited options for escape or effective counterattack. Contact left! Contact right! Sergeant Williams shouted as automatic weapons fire erupted from concealed positions on both sides of the canyon. We're surrounded! The team immediately took defensive positions behind whatever cover they could find, but it was clear they were vastly outnumbered and trapped in terrain that favored the enemy's defensive strategy. As the tactical situation deteriorated, Camila approached Sergeant Williams with an observation that she hoped might help the team escape the ambush. Sergeant, that ridge to the east provides elevated positions that could give us overwatch and covering fire. If we could establish a position there, it might allow the team to break contact and move to better terrain. Williams barely glanced at her while returning fire toward enemy positions. Rojas, that ridge is completely empty. No cover, no concealment, totally exposed. Even if we could get someone up there, they'd be sitting ducks. Other team members overheard the conversation and joined in the dismissive response. She thinks she understands tactics better than SEALs? Laughed Petty Officer Rodriguez between bursts of gunfire. Stick to fixing radios, Tech. The ridge is useless, added another team member. Nothing but bare rock and open sky. Anyone up there would be visible for miles and completely vulnerable. But Camila had already made her decision. While the team was focused on the immediate tactical situation, she quietly gathered specific items from her communication equipment and began moving toward the base of the eastern ridge. Chief Martinez, who had been observing the overall tactical situation, noticed Camila's movement and was puzzled by her actions. Where is she going? That ridge is exactly where you don't want to be during a firefight. As Camila began climbing toward the ridge position, Martinez noticed something about her movement that didn't match her official role as a communications technician. She was using tactical approaches to terrain, moving with the kind of systematic caution that comes from extensive training in hostile environment operations. That's not how a tech moves, he said to himself, recognizing movement patterns that he had only seen from highly trained special operations personnel. The radio crackled with increasingly desperate communications as the team's tactical situation continued to deteriorate. Enemy forces were systematically tightening their positions, and the SEALs were running low on ammunition with limited options for escape or reinforcement. Base, this is Alpha Team, Williams transmitted. We are pinned down in grid square 4792. Enemy forces have us surrounded with superior numbers and positioning. Request immediate support. Alpha Team, be advised no support assets are available in your area. You are on your own for at least 45 minutes. 45 minutes was an eternity in their current situation. At the rate of enemy fire they were receiving, the team wouldn't last another 10 minutes, let alone 45. That's when the first shot echoed from the eastern ridge. The sound was distinctive, a precision rifle shot, deliberate and carefully aimed, completely different from the chaotic automatic weapons fire that had been dominating the engagement. What the hell was that? Rodriguez asked, momentarily pausing his return fire to look toward the ridge they had dismissed as useless. A second shot followed, then a third, each one precise and purposeful. Enemy fire from one of the elevated positions suddenly stopped, and team members could see that the machine gun nest that had been pinning down half their force was no longer operational. "Someone's on the ridge," Martinez said with growing amazement. "Someone just took out the machine gun position that was giving us the most trouble." Williams grabbed his radio. "Unknown shooter on Eastern Ridge, identify yourself." The response came back in a calm, professional voice that Martinez immediately recognized. Falcon Ridge, providing overwatch and fire support. The effect of hearing that call sign was immediate and profound. Martinez had served long enough to know that Falcon Ridge wasn't just any call sign. It was associated with some of the most legendary precision shooting and special operations history. "Falcon Ridge?" he whispered, staring toward the ridge where Camila had disappeared just minutes before. "That's impossible." Years later, Martinez would tell others, "Just hearing the rhythm of those shots, I knew immediately. That wasn't random shooting or luck. That was the precision firing pattern that only one person in Kraken unit ever used, Falcon Ridge." What happened next transformed the entire tactical situation from a desperate last stand into a methodical dismantling of the enemy ambush. From her position on the Eastern Ridge, Camila had established a perfect overwatch position that allowed her to engage enemy fighters who thought they were safely concealed from the trapped SEAL team below. Her shooting was surgical in its precision. Each shot was carefully aimed and devastating in its effect on the enemy's coordination and morale. She targeted key personnel, machine gunners, communications operators, anyone whose loss would degrade the enemy's ability to maintain their coordinated attack. "Target eliminated, northeast position," came her calm voice over the radio. "Target eliminated, southwest position. You have a corridor of movement opening up on your left flank." The SEAL team, which had been pinned down and facing annihilation just minutes before, suddenly found themselves with tactical options as enemy positions were systematically neutralized by precision fire from above. "How is she making those shots?" Rodriguez asked in amazement, watching enemy positions that had seemed untouchable being eliminated one by one. "The range has to be over 800 meters, and she's hitting moving targets in concealed positions." Williams was beginning to understand that they had seriously underestimated their communications technician. "Move left! Use the corridor she's opening for us!" As the team began to maneuver using the opportunities created by Camila's precision fire, her shooting continued with relentless accuracy. In less than 3 minutes, she had eliminated 12 enemy fighters and completely disrupted their coordinated ambush strategy. The remaining enemy forces, faced with devastating, accurate fire from an unexpected direction and finding their tactical advantage evaporating, began to withdraw from their positions and retreat from the engagement area. "All enemy positions neutralized," Camila reported over the radio. "Area is clear for extraction." Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the team leader, grabbed his radio with obvious amazement. "Falcon Ridge, who the hell are you really? That was the most impressive precision shooting I've witnessed in 15 years of special operations." There was a long pause before Camila responded, and when she did, her voice carried the weight of experiences that none of the team had suspected she possessed. "Falcon Ridge was my operational call sign during my previous assignment with Kraken Unit Special Operations. I am Chief Warrant Officer Camila Rojas, formerly assigned to long-range precision engagement operations." The effect of that revelation on the SEAL team was immediate and profound. Every member of the team knew about Kraken Unit's reputation, and Falcon Ridge was a legendary call sign associated with some of the most impossible shots in special operations history. "Kraken Unit?" Williams said, his voice filled with shock and growing respect. "Ma'am, your service record shows you as communications technical support. What happened?" "After my last operational assignment, I lost my spotter and closest friend during a mission that went bad," Camila replied, her voice steady but carrying obvious pain. Miguel Santos died because of a tactical decision I made. I requested reassignment to non-combat technical support because I didn't want to be responsible for making life and death decisions that could cost more lives. Rodriguez, who had been particularly vocal about questioning her presence on the mission, looked sick to his stomach. Ma'am, the things we said about you being a liability, we had no idea who you were or what you were capable of. You treated me based on my current assignment and apparent qualifications, Camila replied. I chose to hide my background because I wanted to serve in a support role without the expectations that come with my previous operational experience. Chief Martinez was putting together pieces of information that explained everything he had observed about Camila's unusual competence. Ma'am, Falcon Ridge holds the record for precision engagement at extreme range. The shot that saved the embassy evacuation in Syria, that was you. That was a different lifetime, Camila said quietly. Today, I'm just a communications technician who happened to be in a position where my previous training could help the team survive. Lieutenant Commander Jackson's respect was evident in every word as he responded. Ma'am, what you did today was extraordinary. You single-handedly turned an impossible tactical situation into a successful mission. 12 enemy fighters eliminated, 0 friendly casualties, perfect precision under extreme conditions. As the team prepared to extract from the area, they could see Camila making her way down from the ridge, carrying equipment that they now realized was far more sophisticated than standard communication gear. Ma'am, Williams said as she rejoined the team, I need to apologize for how we treated you. We dismissed your tactical suggestions and questioned your presence on this mission. We were completely wrong. Sergeant, you couldn't have known, Camila replied, shouldering her pack. I chose not to tell anyone about my background because I wanted to prove that I could be useful in a support role without relying on my previous reputation. But why? Asked Rodriguez. With your skills and experience, you could have any assignment you wanted. Why choose technical support instead of operational roles? Camila looked back toward the ridge where she had just saved all their lives, her expression distant with memories. Because I've learned that sometimes the most important service happens when you use your abilities to help others succeed, rather than to seek recognition for yourself. Today, you all made it home safely. That's what matters. The team that had questioned her presence just hours before now understood that they owed their lives to someone whose qualifications far exceeded their own, someone who had chosen to serve quietly rather than prominently. That ridge, Martinez said, looking back at the position that had provided their salvation. It's not empty anymore. It's where Falcon Ridge saved our lives. If you believe that a position considered empty can become hope itself, right, I owe a debt. After the successful extraction, Camila quietly returned to her regular duties as a communications technician, hoping to resume the support role she had carefully constructed. She wanted no special recognition, no change in assignments, no acknowledgement of her previous service beyond what had already been revealed during the mission. But the transformation in how the SEAL team treated her was immediate and impossible to ignore. The same operators who had questioned her presence on the mission now looked at her with obvious respect and gratitude. Private Chen, who had asked about her interest in the Eastern Ridge, approached her as she was performing routine maintenance on communication equipment. Ma'am, I need to apologize for ever thinking you were just a tech. What you did up there, it was incredible. Camila looked up from the radio she was calibrating. Private, I am just a tech. My previous experience doesn't change my current job or my current responsibilities. I'm still here to maintain communication equipment and ensure that the team can stay in contact with headquarters. But you saved all our lives, Chen protested. You're Falcon Ridge. You're a legend in special operations. Camila was quiet for a moment, considering how to respond. What happened today was an exception because there were no other options available. But my goal is still to support missions through technical expertise, not through combat operations. Later that day, Lieutenant Commander Jackson found her in the communications center, still performing the same duties she had been assigned before anyone knew about her background. Chief Warrant Officer, I've been authorized to offer you a return to operational status. Your skills are clearly being wasted in a technical support role. Sir, with respect, my skills are being used every day, Camila replied, continuing to organize communication equipment. Every time I ensure that radios work properly, every time I maintain satellite links, every time I help teams stay in contact with support, I'm using my experience to help others succeed. Jackson studied her face, trying to understand someone who would choose support work over prestigious operational assignments. But your shooting abilities, your tactical knowledge, shouldn't they be used at the highest levels? Sir, I used those abilities today because the alternative was watching good people die when I had the skills to prevent it. But I chose technical support because I've learned that the most meaningful service often happens behind the scenes. That evening, alone in her quarters, Camila opened the small metal box she kept hidden among her personal possessions. Inside was the Falcon Ridge patch from her Kraken unit service, along with a photograph of her and Miguel Santos during their deployment. Miguel, she whispered to the photograph, today I broke my promise to stay out of combat operations, but I couldn't let them die when I had the ability to save them. She carefully placed the patch back in the box alongside the photograph. I'm still here, still serving, just in a different way, still making sure everyone has what they need to complete their missions successfully. The next morning, Camila reported for her regular technical duties exactly as she had every day for the past 2 years. But something had changed in how other personnel interacted with her. They now understood that they had been working alongside someone extraordinary without knowing it. The eastern ridge that had been dismissed as empty and useless was now marked on tactical maps as Falcon Ridge, a position that had provided salvation when all other options were exhausted. Type, I will live kindly, if you believe that sometimes the places considered useless can save entire teams. This isn't just a story about an empty ridge or a hidden sniper, or the moment when assumptions about someone's capabilities are dramatically overturned. This is about something much more fundamental, the way we judge people and situations based on surface appearances without understanding the potential that lies beneath. How many Camila Rojas are working in supporting roles around you right now? How many people have you encountered who seem to be in positions that don't match their apparent capabilities, who display unusual competence or knowledge that goes beyond what their current roles require? We live in a world that often categorizes people by their job titles and assumes those titles represent the full extent of their abilities and experience. We see someone in technical support and assume they lack the qualifications for more complex work. We see someone performing routine maintenance and assume they've never held positions requiring advanced skills. But people's career paths are complex, and the reasons someone chooses a particular role often have nothing to do with their limitations. Sometimes the most qualified individuals are those who have experienced the weight of high-pressure responsibilities and chosen to serve in ways that don't require making life-and-death decisions for others. Camila chose communications technical support, not because she couldn't handle operational assignments, but because she had handled the most demanding operational assignments imaginable and decided that supporting others was more meaningful than seeking recognition or career advancement. She had saved countless lives as a precision shooter, lost her closest friend due to a tactical decision she made, and chosen to honor his memory by serving quietly rather than prominently. The story also reminds us not to dismiss opportunities or resources based on initial appearances. The SEAL team looked at the Eastern Ridge and saw emptiness, uselessness, and vulnerability. They couldn't imagine that the same position they considered worthless could become their salvation. But Camila saw potential where others saw emptiness. She recognized that the ridge's apparent disadvantages, its exposure, its isolation, its distance from the main action, could be transformed into tactical advantages with the right skills and perspective. Tomorrow, pay attention to the people around you who seem to be in supporting roles but display unusual competence or insight. Notice the resources and opportunities that others dismiss as worthless or irrelevant. Observe the situations that everyone assumes are hopeless or useless. Maybe the quiet person in the technical support role is a former expert who chose a different path. Maybe the position everyone considers worthless is actually the key to solving your biggest challenges. Maybe the solution everyone overlooks is hiding in plain sight. The next time you're tempted to judge someone's worth based on their current role, or dismiss a resource because it doesn't look promising, remember Camila Rojas and the empty ridge. Remember that sometimes what appears worthless can become your only hope, and sometimes the most powerful protection comes from the most unexpected sources. If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to NL Touching Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people are creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.